Hello, today I'm going to show you how I created this portrait of Patch. And I start off with the eyes. I always find that the eyes are a good spot to start because it really creates the mood of the portrait. And with this one, I start by sketching in the black. I put in the white highlights with a white luminance pencil first as well. And then I used two browns in the eye itself. And they were terracotta and caput mortuum. I then blended it out using Odourless Solvent and that's what you see me using with the paintbrush. And it's only a very small amount on the paintbrush, and I use it to blend the layers together. When I'm doing the pencil layers, I am using a very light hand. I'm not pressing hard because otherwise you will damage the tooth of the paper, and then you won't be able to get as many additional layers on top of that. How I get the texture of the fur for this particular dog is I start with a light layer of a luminance pencil called Brown Ochre 10%. I just do a base layer of that over the area, and then I take my Polychromos burnt ochre and do little tiny strokes following the direction of the fur and watching the reference photo to make sure I'm getting the fur going in the right direction, and just tiny little strokes and getting in the darker areas and getting that texture of the fur over that first layer. I then use terracotta and start darkening some of those fur strokes up a little bit before going over with caput mortuum in the darkest areas. I then blend it out and then go over it again, first with burnt ochre, then terracotta, and then caput mortuum again, just building up those little tiny strokes to get that texture of the fur. And with this particular dog, it has short fur, so in that case you do want to keep your pencil strokes quite short and not do long ones, because if you do long ones, that will make the fur look longer. So keep the pencil strokes very short. For that area between the eyes, that white fur area, what I've done there is I've gone over it with warm grey 1 and then again with warm grey 3 to build up the different layers of the little clumps of fur that you see in the white fur. And you don't go too overboard. I haven't really worried about blending that out too much for that area because there's not enough pigment on the paper to make blending very easy. So yeah, I've just used those two colours to create the white fur, and didn't want to darken it too much, so I didn't go too dark with the greys on that. To get the nose looking good, what I've done is just sketched in with the black pencil, getting all the shadows where they need to be. Then I blended out, and then I've gone over with the black pencil, getting a little bit of the texture into especially across the top of the nose. And then I went over it with my white pencil to get a bit more texture on the nose, because dogs' nose often have little sort of like dots across their nose. They've got a little pebbly type texture on their nose, which for portraits which are close like this to the nose itself, you want to try and get that texture in. If it's a portrait where it's a bit further back, then I don't worry too much about it. But for this particular one, I did want to get that texture on the nose. Here I am just continuing on with the white fur around the muzzle of the dog. And again, I'm just using warm grey 1, 3 and 4, and a little bit of 4 in this one, as well as the black to get that dark fur. It's not dark fur as such because the furs are white there. It's the skin showing through can make that area look quite dark around underneath the nose. Certain dogs have darker skin, other dogs might be a bit lighter, so pay attention to how that the skin area looks in your reference photo. And especially around the muzzle, make sure that you are paying attention to your reference photo to get the fur going in the right direction, because it sort of fans out from the nose, but you want to make sure that it's going in the right direction and the right length as well. On the ear here, I'm using slightly longer strokes. The ear fur tends to be, it's not necessarily longer, but it tends to look a little bit longer and smoother the way the fur goes So I used the different browns again, starting with Luminance Brown Ochre 10%, followed by Burnt Ochre and Terracotta and Caput Mortem, and I also used quite a bit of the black on the bottom of the ear as well. I'm doing the collar now. It's there's a lovely blue collar, so I've used middle phthalo blue as well as helio blue reddish, and also black as well, and just did layers of them and then blended it out. Sketching in a little bit of the ground there, making sure there's a shadow underneath the dog. Because of the angle this portrait had on the dog, you wanted some of the ground showing, otherwise it would look like the dog was floating in midair. So, as you'll see, because I've blended out on the edge where there's not much pigment, that area actually looked a lot darker from the odorless solvent, and that actually dried over time. Like waited 10 minutes, half an hour, and that mark was gone. And that was only because I used quite a lot of the solvent to try and blend it out, because I didn't use a lot of pigment in that area, so I needed more solvent to blend it. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial on how I drew this portrait, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye for now.